Hello, Beverly. All right.
I think if he had had.
I'm unmuting. I'm unmuting and we're getting started.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good job, Alex.
Thank you.
Hello,
We
Cheryl.
want to adopt the agenda.
I believe in adoption.
Why not?
Second.
Second.
Okay, adopted.
All in favor. Oh.
Hello, Beverly. Do you hear us? I think yes.
Yes.
Yes, I can, thanks.
Great. Let me
You look
just.
so relaxed up here, Beverly.
I won the watch.
Okay, great. Well, let's start off. First item on our agenda is discussion of technology issues and possible resolutions. So I will first discuss the two big issues that I know about, and our current plan for resolution, and then, you guys can tell me other issues that you're seeing that you think we should work on. So the first issue is that we have an intermittent internet issue where occasionally our internet freezes here in the office, and it freezes for people on Zoom, and it's disruptive. So we've been on the phone with Spectrum and trying to get it fixed. It may be fixed currently. We'll see in this meeting. Beverly will tell us if she thinks that we freeze. And we're also asked if we can have Verizon Fios, which is also available in the building. So that's like another provider, Verizon Fios. So,
fires.
yeah, so I would say we are working on it. And we hope to have a resolution soon. Could be fixed right now.
Hope so.
Any questions about the internet stability issue?
So FiOS is what we use now?
We use Spectrum
We
now.
use Spectrum,
Yeah.
so do we have an idea what the cost differential is, and is that something that's gonna come out of our budget, or is that gonna be paid for
I think
by-
we should, let's
So
cross
as the
that, let's
treasurer.
cross that bridge when it
Okay.
gets to it. It's
Yeah,
it's
but it's
$50,
something we
it's
should think
$50 a
about.
month, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do we have enough bandwidth? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
I had a nightmare with Spectrum for such a long time. Verizon is like a dream, and they offer new subscribers, I think it was $25 a month for 3 years for internet. So,
Yes.
it's really a good deal. You should look into it.
Is this being recorded?
It is, man.
Yeah.
Is this an ad for Spectrum? Yes. Doug.
No, I just, with your expertise, do you know if we have the proper bandwidth in terms of the ability,
We have a lot of bandwidth. That's not the problem. It's 250 megabits per second. It's like we could host offices full of people.
Okay.
The problem is there's some kind of instability that Spectrum can't answer why it happens. That occasionally happens.
Is it linked to the building, the apartment building?
I don't think it's not, I don't think they claim it's not related, but
I'm just wondering if it's worth just making sure before we make any investments.
yeah. The second one is potentially more bigger discussion. So as you know, we are making an effort to no longer have the staff present at evening meetings. And we're doing that because we have been asked / told by the union that to do so, to have them there will require overtime, starting from 5 p.m. through the extent of the meeting. So we're making an effort to not have the staff at meetings. As part of that, we're demoing some different ways of resolving these problems. So one demo we have, I present the iPad and a quick demo on the screen. So this is a product called Zoom Rooms. And basically you can see that the computer is no longer involved. Instead, the iPads are sitting on the table. There's multiple of them. They're open and on at all times. So when you walk into the room, everything's already there for you. And there's a button that says start meeting. So you don't have to log in, you don't have to touch the computer, you just hit the start meeting button and the meeting starts. And there's an iPad, there's multiple iPads around the table. And on the iPad, you can do all the things you usually do with the computer screen. And hopefully it's easier to use. So you can mute, change video, you can see all the list of participants and their raised hands. You can promote someone, you can mute someone. So again, we're not sure if this is the solution, but potentially this is a no cost, Kevin,
I like that.
solution that would allow us to have either co-chairs / other people in the committee be able to help facilitate running of the meetings. So again, we're not making any decisions, but we're gonna be demoing it this month. So Nandita or I will be at the meetings and we'll have the iPad and start it and help you guys as we try it out.
So the first meeting. Yeah.
The next- Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I can wait. Alex, how do you want
No, yeah, go for it. Jamie
to,
first.
how does it work for sharing of presentations when a a member of the public or
Yeah,
an official wants to
yeah.
present.
What we're thinking, and again, Andy and I are seeing how we can make it the easiest for everyone. But we think the easiest is if you want to if you want to present, then you
Mhm.
should have your personal laptop. You know, with the presentation on it, or if someone like Parks is coming, they should
Right.
present. So we shouldn't use the office computer to present because that seems to be like an
Yes.
unfamiliar laptop. I have to email it.
Right,
So whoever's coming to present, they have their computer, we make them a panelist, they can share their screen
okay.
and then present. So that's the current thinking, but again, subject to change, and Andy
But-
and I will.
So,
Alex, you're assuming everyone has a laptop. I don't happen to have one. I have an iPad and I have a desktop, but I don't have a laptop.
Yeah, I think we're assuming that the people doing, if you're doing a presentation, you would have one. So I think this is good feedback, like if there are often times where the chair is doing a presentation. Then we could, I mean, this computer's not going anywhere, so we could always have that for people to use if they wanted to. But we're hoping that people using their own device would be more familiar for them.
Just a thumb drive.
Yeah,
So are these iPads, are those new or are they
no, this is donated, so we'll see.
donated by, like?
Yeah,
Okay. No, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, like, if there was financial support given.
oh,
to-
no, it turns out we have an old laptop sitting in the corner, so iPad, so.
Oh, cool, okay. And then the second question, going back to the staff question, when you said the overtime situation, is that just for being in person for the staff, or is it zooming and everything?
Zooming, everything, working,
So after 5 o'clock, we should not be in contact with
yes.
staff, okay?
What if a person started his or her day at noon instead of 9?
Unfortunately, the way it's written, the day has to start by, I believe, 10 a.m.
Right.
So it's not an option.
I don't know.
Is this your program?
No, this is Zoom Room. Zoom provides this. This is a Zoom product.
Did you say at the first meeting, next meeting for each committee, that someone would be here to help the
Yeah,
first time
Yeah,
around?
yeah. Nandita and I are gonna be here and we're gonna see how it goes and then take feedback and iterate.
What committee is that?
Any of them, all of them, all of the ones.
next?
Oh, the next one.
Good question.
I don't know.
HHF?
It'll be us next week.
Yeah, 28. 28, HHS. Yes, Doug.
Hey, Michael. No, just, so are you envisioning, just one of these to launch, or it would be multiple iPads around the table?
I think it would be cool if we had multiple iPads, because then, you could be having a conversation and then Barbara could see, oh, someone has raised their hands. Oh, it's Steve Anderson, let me promote him.
Right.
So, but again, we're gonna see how it works. It could, people could find it confusing to have a bunch of iPads out. So we're gonna have to see how it goes.
Okay.
And I would just say, we are part of the board here. There are 40 other members. Each
Mhm.
committee is made up of multiple people,
Yeah.
many of whom are not here. The more people that get exposure to it, the more possibilities that people can learn how to use it.
Mhm.
There's redundancies built in. I think we leverage it, we try it. It's not fair to the staff to do what we've been doing.
Mhm.
These are good solutions. I think we can,
Great,
we have our contingency plans. We can
Right.
try something new and see where it goes.
great. Any other questions on this topic? Any other items you would like to bring up that are technology related? Yes.
It's not technology, it's, at the last meeting, I was given a key to come in.
Mhm.
Thank you. That key is downstairs to upstairs. How is that happening?
Yes, that key is just to downstairs.
Oh,
And there's a lockbox that's on the front door, but we haven't implemented this.
Nobody.
Yeah, we haven't implemented this yet, so you haven't received any information about
I
it,
just
so,
have the key.
yeah. So hold on to the key, and soon you will receive more instructions about how one would use the key. But,
Are we all getting keys?
yes, the
Okay.
current plan is that all co-shares will have keys, but again. If you feel comfortable using it, please use it.
I won't open the
And
front door
Nancy's
here.
also said she was gonna
Internet
come
is
for an hour
unstable.
each time to give tech help.
Yeah.
When will that start?
Yes, Nandita will be emailing everyone to set up a time, so in progress. Great.
That's the sense of insecurity.
Now, any other questions? No. Any other general technology questions?
This isn't technology, but when we sign in with the QR, I mean, it is related to this.
Mhm.
Do we need a few more or maybe a
Yeah.
QR on the wall so we don't have to keep
The wall. would
doing
be
what I'm doing
great.
right now?
Good point,
The
good
wall's a
point.
great idea.
That's a good idea. Yeah, the wall.
The
A big wall.
Table, Pink Floyd the wall.
We could paint it.
Right here.
Okay, great.
Pass
Let's,
that down when you're done.
yeah, let's move on to the next, which is discussion of resolution procedure. So Carey, do you want to describe it or do you want me to start? Do you want me to share my screen?
Sure, if you'd like to kick it off.
Great.
Oh,
Carey and I were discussing,
To sign in is.
Carey and I were discussing, a habit that occasionally we have seen, and that definitely happened in the last transportation meeting, which was, you know, we were being asked to vote on a resolution that was not written anywhere. And it was very confusing what is being
Saralee.
voted on. And I know this happens in a few different committees, where we say, does everyone kind of understand what we're voting on? And there's nodding of heads, and then we vote on something. And this is not the first time that people have said to me, like, I find this process confusing and uncomfortable because I'm not 100% sure what I just voted on. And I think we will talk about some of the nuances. Oftentimes in a committee where we're simply saying, yes, we approve this SLA license, right? That might be simple, but then in some committees, it definitely becomes more than just, yes, we approve this. So, Carey and I talked and a few others, and we have this kind of, proposed resolution. So maybe you could talk through what it does or does not do.
Sure. So it does two primary things. The primary requirement is that, and this came out of conversations with Alex and Beverly, it requires that any resolving clause, the therefore be it resolved, be in writing only prior to a vote being taken. So this still allows for people to walk into a meeting, prior to being voted on. And this allows for everybody to understand exactly what the proposals are. It's going to empower different committee members to offer substantive amendments. And it's going to cut down on time before we get to full board and the need for further amendments at that point, if there's any change between what happens at the committee and at full board. And the resolution clauses, all of this work has to be done before full board, no matter what. So this is really just a question of when is the work getting done? Is it going to be done between, committee vote and full board, or is it going to be done before you take the committee vote? And this is just ensuring that it happens early. And in response to Adam's comment, there's inclusion in here that if everybody agrees, by unanimous consent, you can waive the requirement. So if everybody understands, okay, we're voting on an application, it's up or down, nobody needs additional clarity to really understand what they're voting on. By unanimous consent, the requirement can be dispensed with and a verbal vote can be taken, and then the resolution would be drafted prior to full board. So that's the proposal.
Is that unanimous consent of the people present or unanimous consent of the full committee?
Unanimous consent of committee members who are present. So as long as there isn't an objection of people
I
who are
think you
present.
need to specify that if that's the case.
Well, I don't know. Well, so for unanimous consent, the way unanimous consent works is the request is there an objection? And if no objection is heard, then the consent is unanimous. So it isn't that it defines who needs to be present. It defines the absence of an objection.
As an attorney, I can tell you that usually unanimous consent in the bylaws means everyone on the committee needs to agree.
Hopefully we're not going before SCOTUS.
So right, and I have a different understanding of how.
Hopefully not.
Okay. I think it's a good question for Minna. I think we can swing back on it, but I think a lot of other people have questions, so let's start. Ken, go for it.
First of all, do any other boards require this?
I haven't looked into that question.
on a screen so everybody can see it, no?
Writing is writing, as long as everybody can see the words. So we have a napkin and we gather around.
You want it on the screen?
No, it doesn't have to.
There's no requirement for that.
Well, it has to
I'm
be
just, I'm
noticed
just,
in advance.
I'm just wondering, why not, substitute for writing, resolving clauses or clauses, then the wording is agreed upon, before being voted on. The wording is agreed upon rather than in writing. What's the necessity to have it in writing?
I think we're getting at the same thing, and I think in writing is much clearer. I think the goal is to make it so that not just I think the current practice assumes that there's agreement on what the wording may be, when the real request is to see the words. So that's what can be understood. At the end of the day, before this gets to full board anyway, it isn't required that there's agreement on the wording. You need a written resolution that you go to full board with. So this brings us in line with what we're gonna need to do anyway.
Let's go, Barbara.
First.
Okay, good.
So, I remember when we made the changes to the recent version of the bylaws, this was a topic. And maybe some people remember it more clearly than I do. We did some consultation, I believe, with the Manhattan Borough President's legal office, attorney of the day, and we were obviously very concerned about being in conformant, if that's a word, with the open meetings law. And, I think the problem that we're solving for, and correct me if anyone's all sorts of ethical things, because whether intentional or unintentionally, when we write a resolution, sometimes there's creative wordsmith. Practical. So I don't want to hamstring us to, have to get stuck if we really need to move forward something and it's pretty clear. But on the other hand, I'm concerned that we may be tying ourselves and restricting ourselves a little much, but that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I basically agree with what Doug just said. I think this is unwieldy and at times impossible. We've been doing resolutions the way we do them for a very long time with very little issue. It is true that sometimes we have a resolution that has some finite points to it, and those should absolutely be made in advance, and they almost always are. But when something slips through the cracks, it happens, but it happens rarely. And this just seems like a very unwieldy thing to add to our bylaws. So we're not a court of law,
Right. We'll keep on going around and then we can address some points, but I want to remember, it's just the wherefore clause. So we're not saying the entire resolution is written,
Most important.
right? So it's just the resolving clause, but we'll keep going.
Other people have their hands before me.
A couple of things. What happens at meetings where you come in, maybe a resolution, but you have all kinds of people testifying and they disprove the resolution? This resolution is not pertinent anymore.
Exactly.
Great.
So why have that resolution?
Well, then you
You're gonna
don't,
have to write a resolution
Yeah.
at that
Right.
point, whether it's people compromising or a whole new idea that's come through the meeting. And I've been at meetings like that where they said, because of testimony, wait a minute,
yeah,
It's
we
withdrawn.
wish we knew that.
right.
So why are you having a resolution already resolved
Mhm.
when you come in, you're gonna have to listen? And I think it also makes the public feel like you've already made up your minds.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true, right.
No, but isn't, I'm sorry to jump in,
Yeah.
but just to add to that, isn't the idea that the clause could be drafted during?
Right.
meeting? Isn't that what the idea is?
Yeah, so I think currently we often verbally say this is the clause, right? But instead of just verbally saying, this is what it is, we would say, write it on a piece of paper in front of us, push it around, or show it on a screen and write out. Well, given we just heard this great feedback from the FDNY, we want to change, we want the wherefore clause to now say this, Y, Z, but just have it written somewhere such that when we vote on it, it's clear to someone what it is we just discussed. So it's not purely verbal, yeah.
Or
And
even
it's,
if
wait,
it
it's
could
not
be
set in
just
advance.
a few points,
Mm.
like, it has to be written out, like, not nicely, but like, just a few, the salient points.
I think it's a good question we can come back to. Does it have to be written out in full
Yeah.
formal? But let's keep going. Seema.
I agree with the points about practicality. While I think this is great in concept, and obviously you should know what we're voting for, that must be clear. In practice, at least in housing and land use, we have complicated issues that we're dealing with. We don't want to come in and say that things are decided and we know best. And like, for instance, the Bloomingdale Library Project, I actually did come in with feedback that was from our previous meeting. We like bled all over it. We had a concept, then taking it back, we wrote yet a different resolution.
Got back to where
But-
it started.
But not quite, but you'll see. But the point is, we do, go and then circulate that resolution as soon as possible after.
Mhm.
And that's when we hopefully get feedback from everyone that says, yes, this reflects accurately our conversation, or no, it doesn't, and here's the feedback.
Yeah.
I agree, it's not ideally you do it all at the table,
Mhm.
but the other thing is that we end up, we have so many things on our agenda,
Mhm.
and then spending time to like tweak and draft
Mhm.
is maybe not the best use of our time together.
Mhm. Okay, great.
Especially
Yeah.
So I agree with,
just follow, I'm
oh,
sorry,
sorry, I didn't see you, but.
following. Oh,
Don't follow me.
Thank you.
just that on Manhattan and on the Bloomingdale Library, so many people had tweaks or points that they wanted to do. It seems to me that that would have been very difficult to pull out and put into a coherent document in a meeting.
Mm.
I mean, Seema got them all and she kept changing and moving things around to accommodate what people said and also whether things worked or really, in the context of the whole thing.
Great. We'll keep going. We're gonna go Elizabeth and then we're gonna go to Michael and then Beverly's online, but yeah.
Yeah, I think this, some of this came out of what happened at the transportation meeting, and I would just add, I guess, can we go back to the written,
Oh, yes.
just to confirm that you want to power off this device? The shading in beige about advance notice of the meeting,
Mhm.
wherever that is, yeah. Properly notice in advance, like how long in it, like, do you mean by the time Jesse posts it and sends out the communication about our monthly agenda so that it has to be, is that considered advance notice, or is it the night of? Do we post it the day of? Like that to me is what's confusing because.
72 hours.
Yeah, so I just wanna say, we'll come back to this, but only the bold is being added, right?
Correct.
So this, all the non-bold is already in our.
Already there.
Okay, I understand that. I just,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's so confusing.
Yeah.
I agree with what has been said already, that I think so much of it comes out of the discussion at the meeting. We don't need to adjudicate every single point at the meeting. But I think afterwards, a lot of times we spend sort of recirculating amongst ourselves. We come to a general consensus and then finalize the actual resolution the day or two after.
Let's go Michael and Beverly and then Natasha.
So I'm gonna come out in support of this. I think it's a great idea. I know it sounds like I'm on the unpopular side of this, but I think that so often we come into meetings and we don't have a clear direction of what we're trying to do. The way that I'm understanding this, and please correct me where I'm wrong, because I'm sure I am somewhere, but I'm understanding this as we are coming into a meeting, hopefully with some bones of a resolution built out by the chairs or whomever is trying to bring this resolution forward. And you are saying, I'm just gonna pick an example here, just for the sake of argument, that we resolve to either support or, withdraw support over the, Bloomingdale Library project scheduled for construction between 2025 and 2031. And then in that meeting, so that's your starting point. It's giving everyone the opportunity to say, okay, what are we actually talking about? What are we trying to figure out? Then in the course of that meeting, you are all working together to start to build out, again, the majority of what that resolution is, understanding that there still may be tweaks in the process following the vote. I think you brought up the example of housing land use. That process exactly mimics what I think the intention is here, which is that it was only when we all shared our opinions, we listened to the public, we expressed our thoughts, and then we put up on the screen what the actual resolution was, and it allowed us to have a practical, actionable, like firm thing with which to vote on. And that was not the end of it, but it was just the starting point. So I think like if we're viewing it not as we are coming in with all things resolved and we're just doing an up and down vote, but rather it's just giving all the committee members an opportunity to start somewhere. So I'm sorry, this is long-winded. I think it's a good thing. I think it also, I think it was Adam's suggestion that you said, there's also a, buyout option where you're like, we're not doing something that deep. We just want to waive our right to this and we can just have a friendly conversation. So I think it's a good starting point. I know it is different from the current processes, but I don't think it actually disrupts much. I think it's beneficial to members of the public, members of the committees, and members of the full board.
Beverly.
Yeah, I support this because I've seen many, many times people just not clear on what's been in fact agreed to on a vote. So it seems to me that if somebody writes it down and reads it before the vote, that's adequate. We don't have to necessarily, it has to just be stated clear and for the record written down. I know this could be a little bit onerous, but if you think of it as only the resolve clause, much of the fine tuning and wordsmithing and concern about accuracy that we go through in a final resolution for the full board really comes in the part that's the statement of fact. That isn't addressed here. That's something the committee should be able to continue to work on, up until 72 hours before full board if needed, in order to get exactly a final product that everyone's comfortable with. But what you have agreed to, it seems to me, is got to be in the vote, or we're going to have continued issues around total misunderstanding of exactly what the vote is about. So I think this is cuts narrowly enough that I feel very comfortable with it.
Natasha?
Yeah, I'm no longer on the Parks Committee, but I remember for all these years, like, we have the opposite problem where, like, our applicants come to us with very clear presentations. Anybody who's in the room or on the Zoom, they know exactly what is being discussed. And at the end, we just say, what you've seen here, this is what we're going to approve, maybe plus or minus this. It's very, very clear. And then we just circulate a draft of the entire resolution and give everybody adequate time, usually, to return back to us with comments. So I feel like that's a more sort of efficient way of doing it, even if you don't have good material in advance or even at the time. But like most of the time, actually, we don't get any materials in advance, even in a committee like Parks, where the applicants are usually very well organized.
Natasha, who's the everybody you circulated to?
The committee. Just-
Can I ask a follow-up?
Before we go back to it, you want to ask one
I
clarifying?
want to
first?
ask
Okay,
a follow-up
yeah, go.
to Natasha. So would you consider the votes you take on those presentations to be motions or resolutions?
No, that is the resolution, but then when we circulate the draft of the entire resolution, that's the time when the committee can speak up and say, this is not what we discussed.
Right.
You're just adding this ad hoc, on your own. You can't do that.
Right, but in
So
committee, when you vote,
Yeah.
at the moment, so you've seen the presentation,
Yeah.
you're in committee,
Yeah,
and it's time to vote.
yeah.
Do you think of that as,
Not that
There's
we've
the
ever
final
really
vote.
had to think of it, but
Mhm.
when it's time to vote,
Yeah.
is somebody moving? Or is it in fact a resolution? And I ask because in Robert's rules, there's a distinction. I think this is how we got into this habit of voting on things that are resolutions without a written resolution. You can vote on motions without anything in writing, but technically you're not supposed to vote on anything that's not in writing. And so at BCI or at parks where you have a nice clean presentation, you could just move to vote on it. That is your resolution, right?
Yeah, but we
So
don't
that's my
have,
question.
we don't have
whether you-
anything written
Yeah,
that we
can I-
have written
Can I have
ourselves
some,
at the time.
say
It's
something just
very
like
rare.
specific to this?
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
But like, why could you not simply go in with it written that, pending the, as Beverly was mentioning, sort of the additional preceding clauses, your resolution is therefore be it resolved that Parks supports this project. That is all that's being asked, is that portion be put down in writing, and if
I
you
can
don't know.
understand that it's easy for for a committee like Parks, but I can understand also for
But
others.
I think that's like the core of the, like, every resolution is going to be, therefore, this committee
Yeah,
supports or does not support
yeah.
this thing, like that, that's all that's being asked, is just.
Before we go to the second round of questions, I see your hand online. Let's have Carey answer some of the ones we heard, and then we'll do another round.
Right, and the first thing I want to stress actually addresses that point exactly, and the concerns that this is potentially unwieldy and that current practice on committees is working as it should and people are happy with those processes. If there's a process that is working and there isn't an issue with that, nothing needs to change. This says if everybody agrees, it's fine. The only situation where this potentially adds a different requirement is if somebody raises their hands and says, can we pause for a moment? I don't understand what we're voting on. I would like to see it in writing. At that point, the committee member is under this allowed to see something in writing. Everybody has to pause and you can write out whatever it is that's done. That's the only place this applies. So if it's a straightforward presentation, like everybody understands that we support what the Parks Department is going to do. It's a straightforward application. We didn't want to make up our minds beforehand, but now it's clear, we're just going to support it. If there's no objection, it can be drafted later and it just proceeds that way. So I don't think that I don't think anybody should be concerned that it isn't practicable or it's unwieldy, because if it's already working, then that's fine. It really is just, I think where there are going to be more nuanced conversations, it's going to end up making it easier for the resolution drafters, because now you have everybody at the table, amendments can be clear, and by the time you go to full board, there's already been that fulsome conversation and you've had the resolved clauses there, and people know what it is, and there isn't going to be an issue of, well, I thought we were going to add this, but we didn't. It puts a limit on what the creative license in the background is after people thought they had an agreement, but they didn't. And makes it so that there's a writing done.
Do you want to answer any other questions, or should we go for second round?
I think Kristen did.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the back row.
Yeah,
so-
first round.
Sorry. I just want to make sure we're solving for the problem, like we're identifying the problem we're trying to solve for. Because I think in full board, when we get into like wordsmithing, right, when someone's like, no, that implies something that I don't want, so let's insert the word not, right, which would flip the whole thing. My perspective is that opinion is usually from someone who is not on the committee. So, like, if the committee had already come to like, this is our language, even if it's written or if it's verbal, no matter what, when they get to full board, folks are still gonna say, I wanna change the language to not, or whatever. Like,
Can respond to that.
Well, and I think I feel like I've seen situations where it's been the opposite situation, where there is a committee presenting a resolution to full board and there are amendments from committee members, because there was a disconnect between what happened at committee and what's now at full board. And it always feels, it's a frustrating use of time at full board when that happens, because it always feels like those conversations should have happened on the committee level beforehand, and a committee should be more or less, a committee's taken a vote, it's always nice to see a committee have a, either a united front or there's a clear divide between what's going on rather than, well, if we had more time with this, here's what we would have preferred to
Yeah,
come
I agree,
together.
like,
To respond
I
to
think
Kristen's
that
point.
by the time the resolution's presented to full board, the committee discussion should be done. But I don't understand how that happens, even with like a verbal agreement on a resolution, if you're circulating the language before full board, like, if you're a committee member and you just choose to not comment on the document that's been circulated to you, like, that's on you, like, right, so I feel like if everyone did their work as a committee member and you got the document, you were like, oh, wait, I didn't think this is what I said. That's your moment, your opportunity to speak up. So I don't understand why it's falling down there. Cause I agree, it's a waste of time to come to full board and the committee itself is still fighting it out.
Respond to that?
Yeah.
So according to Robert's rules, if you have a resolution on the table and somebody makes an amendment to flip the resolution, that's not acceptable. That's sort of out of order because that is sort of taking the resolution and turning it around 180 degrees. That's not an appropriate motion. And anyone chairing a meeting should actually say that's not a legitimate motion. You can make amendments, you can make modifications, but if you're saying something and
Changes
adding
the
not,
intent. Yeah.
that is not an appropriate amendment. So, I think obviously, to your point, I think the problem that we're trying to solve for is clarity, transparency, and avoiding any tomfoolery, which is a word I like, or feeling rushed into something, right? So one of the things that I would feel comfortable with, I mean, I like where we're going with this. I really do, but to me, the wherefore clause really is the only thing that matters. And the full board vote is the only thing that matters. The board only speaks with a full board, unless we, make exceptions on a committee when you can't get into, during the summer or something. But, so to me, the wherefore clause, I would be okay leaving a meeting knowing that everything has been verbally discussed. Everything's recorded now. So actually our minutes are YouTube. It didn't used to be that way. So, and there have been times where we voted on something and then we went back in the recording and said, oh, wait a minute, no, that's not what someone said. And maybe we modify it. So I would be very comfortable with the spirit of the resolution, walking out of the room with bullet points or takeaway key points. These are the key points. These are the bullet points that we are agreeing to, and we could wordsmith it for grammatical and beautification, but not changing substance of the points that we voted on.
Let's go to Minna and then we'll keep going around the room.
I agree with what Doug just said about the wherefore clauses being more important. I don't think the resolving clause is particularly important, nor do I think that's where most people's confusions come from. I think that, we like or we don't like is not the thing that people are concerned about. It's the conditions that are put in, that we want to see this and we want to see that, we want to see the other thing. Because sometimes the resolution may say, we agree with this subject to the following 10 points. It's the 10 points that people care about. And so I just think this is essentially designed to create more space and time between, having a thing approved. I think it creates delays.
Quick question, is the resolving clause not the wherefore clause?
It's
No.
the wherefore is the
Therefore.
prefacing clauses, that therefore be it resolved is the resolving clauses. That's what we're talking
I mean,
about.
this
It's
is the, this is the
10
very
things.
issue we are talking
Right.
about.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
literally,
Right.
we have it in writing, we had an
So I
opportunity to
think-
review
I
it,
think-
and we are opining
Right.
incorrectly.
I
I mean, come on.
I think Minna, isn't that what, Minna, I think what Carey's saying is that he's agreeing, the clause that lists that we agree with these 10 stipulates is the part that's the resolving clause, is what Carey's saying.
No.
We would resolve that we want to support this project at Bloomingdale Library.
Yeah.
The wherefore clauses are all of the things that
Oh,
we
right,
can
right,
talk
right,
about.
right, yeah,
The
yeah.
preceding
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
clauses
yeah.
that we can talk about over a Google Doc,
Right.
continued meetings, whatever it might be. Again, I apologize if I'm stepping out of line here. All this is saying is that, like, what is the thing that we are agreeing to? Do we support this project or we do not support it? Do we support this
But
application? Do we?
to me, that is the least important of the things, because the
Sure,
way
that-
you frame the wherefores, you may
that's
be
that's not-
saying, we approve it subject to so many things we're actually disapproving.
Sure, but that's not what this resolution is about. Again, it's the fundamental issue at hand is exactly what's on display right now. We are we are discussing the resolving clause of how we address resolutions and the resolving clauses therein. Plain and simple. I mean.
Okay, if you
All right,
were
let's
gonna
wait,
state this as a
wait.
resolution, how would you state this?
There it is.
Well, it would be, if we were stating this as a resolution, the prefacing clauses are wherefore resolutions are important to the operation of the board, wherefore resolving clause is the only thing that the board speaks for, wherefore there's been some discussion among committees about the best way to effectively run a meeting, therefore be it resolved, unless otherwise agreed by unanimous consent, all resolutions will be in writing prior to voting.
So let's
That's the resolution
With
clause, that
proper notice.
final.
So let's just have it, let's just have an
it's fine.
example. So I put on the screen, the Bloomingdale Library current resolution. So you're saying, we could have walked out of that meeting and had none of this written that I've highlighted, right? We did, but I'm saying we could have none of it written. We could have all had it verbally. But the only thing we would have had written would be the following: Manhattan Community Board 7 ratifies the substance. Well, this is a tricky one because.
Because we can of course say, yes, we support the letter, but
Right.
what's in the letter?
Right,
Like,
Right.
that's-
Oh,
No,
this
but you
one
can
is,
go back to the letter though. I mean.
Okay.
No, but the letter,
Let's,
you're saying that we need to draft the letter in the meeting? Like, that's
Oh,
a
you're
lot of time.
yeah.
No, I see.
Yeah,
It's not pointing to like a literal letter that pre-existed the
But-
meeting.
But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
if it wasn't the letter, like when I went to draft it, I tried to draft it as a resolution. It didn't make sense because it was a
Yeah.
bunch of feedback and there's nothing
Yeah.
to resolve. But all of that feedback, as you know, you were at the meeting, we discussed very detailedly, right? I'd like to think that people understood what they were voting on, but I think following up with the letter made it more clear.
But I think the ultimate resolution out of that meeting was that we were supporting this project contingent on certain terms. And that all that was, and then we had discussed those terms. And then it was just a matter of putting it into the letter. Like, the resolution was the resolution. A
Okay.
rose is a rose is a rose.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep on going. That was a good example for me to pick, but also a tricky one. I think a longer example is, this is the one we wrote about helicopter tours. So there's a very long list of things related to helicopters. And then we have it therefore be it resolved, which would have been written in the meeting or beforehand, that says we want to cease taxpayer use of funds to promote helicopters. But I get the point with this, with the example, which is, it is quite tricky. So yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah, well, if often the be it resolved is fairly straightforward. But as Seema has said, often especially with housing and land use, I've noticed, the resolved clauses can be as lengthy as the wherefore.
Sorry.
And really detailed and sort of goes back and forth. You can't say you oppose or you're in favor of. It's like we're in favor of this part, we oppose this part, we want this to happen. And, you know, to ask for that kind of wording, I mean, I was my professional career as an editor, and there is a circle of hell reserved for group editing. And if I go down there, that's where I'm gonna go. I mean, it is horrible, and it's a huge time waster.
Yeah.
And we don't wanna go there, and all it takes with, you know, this unanimous consent requirement is one person who wants to gum up the works.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then that's it.
Let's keep asking questions and then we'll return back to Carey for a second. Anyone other questions?
I would prefer that we require the co-chairs to send the resolution, the draft resolution to all committee members.
Yeah.
And get an approval in advance, rather than this. This is much too complicated for me. I see it now in terms of my new committee that I'm co-chairing. That it doesn't work for a lot of parks meetings and, you know.
But you're
Natasha could-
saying, circulated when, before the committee meeting?
No,
Yeah,
after.
which we basically do anyway. I mean, you have done that religiously.
After.
After the committee
Okay, after.
meeting is over,
Yes.
and after the co-chairs write the resolution, we sent it off to everybody,
Yeah,
and you get an approval.
yeah,
It,
yeah. Good point of,
we always do that anyway. We have always done that.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm sorry, the direct response to what you're saying is that unfortunately, that does sound very practical, but it would be violating open meetings law. Because now you're having a consent, you're doing business and having approval without the public. I get it, but
we
I don't think it
voted
would
in
be
con-
legal.
We voted in concept at the meeting, okay?
Yeah,
All those in favor in concept of the presentation that we just saw,
yeah.
vote yes, vote no.
Mhm.
And
But if
then
there's any substantive
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
and you're discussing that on the phone or the internet or emails.
there aren't,
It's a violation.
We've been violating the law for 40
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Okay,
Right.
we're gonna keep asking questions. I mean, what Doug is trying to say is, let's say you send out the thing and I say, I disagree, that's not what I heard. And then we're having a debate over email about what was said in the
When we
meeting.
go to the YouTube.
So again, I understand your point and it's tricky. And who is the other person who should, yes,
Can you go back to your helicopter?
yeah.
So are you saying that the therefore be it resolved, right? Da, 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 da. That's what needs circulated in advance to the committee, or it needs to be up on the screen.
It needs to be in
Before the
writing
vote.
before you vote.
Yeah.
So you can do it
So you can
day
look
of.
at that, you can do it in the meeting, you can write
Before-
that
before
out
the full
So then what
Right.
needs to be
No,
there
no,
72
no,
hours
for the
in
committee
advance?
vote.
Before the committee.
before full board,
Before the
full
committee
resolution.
Yeah, the resolution.
Got
And you
it,
need
that's
to
not what I
provide
asked
notice.
before, so
I'm saying what
this effectively does not need to be on an agenda for a committee. It could just say, we're meeting to discuss helicopters
Yeah.
at the
I'm,
meeting.
I'm not taking a position on that because this proposal, I don't have the subject matter expertise on that. I have an opinion
My
on that,
point
but
is that I
that's.
think it makes a difference for committee chairs, so those of us in the room, that we have to come into the meeting with a resolution versus with a subject
exactly.
that we're going to
Yeah.
discuss and form a resolution on.
So,
What is the difference?
There are
What-
several
what-
points. The first is whatever the requirement that you're talking about, it's already there. We're not talking about amending it. So whatever's there is already a requirement and it already reflects what the OML is. And we can discuss with the Manhattan Borough President's Office what's required to begin with.
I
This
don't understand what that
proposal.
means.
So
Okay, let me try to explain,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're not changing anything about what happens before the committee meeting. So currently,
But
when.
that-
But that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But that-
currently, when we say we notice, we usually mean that we're 72 hours beforehand on our website or agenda, it should say potential resolution or something to that effect.
But you haven't even gone into the meeting yet. People haven't even testified.
No,
yet.
I know, so we're not changing anything, so it's just, that's what currently happens and that would.
And that's fine.
That's fine, that, under this proposal, that continues, that's fine. So you say, we potentially might have a resolution to the helicopters.
So
Well-
that's what we did for transportation this month.
Yeah, so that's totally good,
So that was fine.
yeah.
So,
So then you go into the meeting, you discuss helicopters at length, right? You say, what do we think? We don't like the helicopters for all these reasons, yes, yes, yes. So my resolution that I would like to put forward, and then you would either start writing on a piece of paper or on the screen, or you'd have something prepared originally, and you'd say, my resolution says, therefore be it resolved, I call upon New York City and Co. And then Barbara says, I don't like that it says New York City and Co. And then Saralee says, I like that, and then we go back and forth and we add New York City and Co. in there, okay? And then it's clear, we're gonna do a vote now on the helicopters, you ready to do the vote? Okay, so we vote on the resolution. And it's the same thing we're doing now, it's just that like, there's a literal written version. Whereas what could.
versus what's on a Zoom,
No,
versus what we're talking
what,
about.
what versus what's verbal. So what
Okay.
we verbally say
Okay.
sometimes is, you all don't like the helicopters, right? I'll go back and write the resolution later. Let's vote in concept. Right? So then we vote in concept and I, as the chair, go back and write the resolution. And then oftentimes we share that out afterwards. Now, the point about that.
Sometimes not at all.
Sometimes not at all. So the point that Carey is making, and and definitely other people have said to me, is when we do that vote in concept, I don't fully understand what Alex is gonna write. And so I feel uncomfortable voting that Alex is gonna adequately or accurately represent what happens in the meeting. So that's why that's what this resolution is intending to address, but it's, yes. So I hope that helped.
That's not clear to me. talking about having this written out beforehand.
No,
before you even
no,
have-
That's not what he,
No,
before the
before
vote,
Before the vote,
Yeah, before the vote.
not before the meeting.
But verbatim.
although I would be happy to have it.
Well, okay, well, that's not how
That's
that.
not the
Let's,
proposal.
we're gonna go with the four people who currently have their hand up, and then we'll come back to Carey. So Michael?
I just think this, what we are doing right now is exactly an example of why I think this has a practical use. This is a convoluted, nuanced conversation that had we not had the text in advance, and had we not had the text on the screen, this conversation would have been even more difficult to follow. For people that are here, we are already struggling with it between a misunderstanding between wherefore and therefore clauses.
Mhm.
So I think there's a great value to this. We've talked about it for a long time and at length. I'm not sure if people are changing their opinion, so I think we should move on shortly.
Yeah.
But I think that, I hope that we can see the value of this in practice because we are literally living it at this moment.
Okay, let's do the last three, and then to your point, we can wrap it up, so.
So I would like to say that with more complicated resolutions or ones that are particularly heated in nature,
Mhm.
at the end of a long night, when there is a lot of disagreement or perhaps confusion, if you can't see what you're talking about in writing, it can be difficult to know what you're talking about. Or to understand someone has a friendly amendment. What are we voting on now? I'm confused, I'm lost, I don't know what's happening. If it's in writing, it's much easier to get your head around exactly what's being discussed. I, for one, am in favor of advanced written notice of the resolutions, because
Which
that's
is
how
not what we're
it's done.
discussing right now.
I understand that, but I want to be
Keep
on the
going, yeah,
record.
okay,
I want to be on the record
Yeah,
as thinking, as saying,
okay,
and being in favor of
Fair.
more clarity, not less. And just because we've done something a certain way for 20, 30 years, doesn't mean that's the best way to do it. And I think more clarity in the meeting during the conversation is better for everyone around the table, including members of the public who are having a hard time in some of our meetings following along.
okay, let's go for Seema.
Two questions. One, Carey, would you go back to the helicopter resolution, please? So in practice, I don't know exactly how transportation works, but there is zero chance that we would do that in the meeting. That extremely detailed, just the resolution, therefore be it resolved. Like, we would say, in concept, we're against helicopter tours, right? And we could write that down in concept. Would therefore be it resolved, we are against helicopter tours. It won't look like that, at least, in our committee. It might look like that later after we go back and make it more beautiful, to Doug's point. So that's one question for you. My real question is, how far off our current practice across the committees, how far off are we from what we're trying to get to?
So I'm on different committees and we've sometimes been very off. Sometimes what's happened is the conversation has been around the table. Yeah, we don't like helicopters, and somebody says we should address, the hours that they're able to operate, or maybe not over this part of the district. One other person will say, yeah, there's no vote, there's nothing written down. You can go to the YouTube and you find that. Is that in the resolution? What are we voting for? Following, and then someone calls the question because it's 9 o'clock.
Right.
We've been there for, 2.5 hours already. It's getting late. That's my experience of committee practice. And that's why I think this is necessary. If other people are having different experiences, and it sounds like other people are having different experiences, and I think that's great. And that's why nothing needs to change on those committees. If everything is working fine and nobody needs to have anything in writing, unanimous consent, and that's it. You vote on the proposal, everybody agrees. You say, is it okay if we draft it? It says, if agreed, it doesn't need to be in writing. So if everybody understands that it's an up or down vote on a proposal and everybody's okay with that, great, done, nothing changes. And so it's only for the situations where somebody's really looking at this and they're saying, but wait a minute, what are we going to full board? What are we actually doing? I think,
situation.
right. And I think when you start, if you write down just, we're opposed to helicopters, I think then the group comes together and says, what are we really saying here? Let's make this right. Let's make this accurate. And if there isn't that, okay, the vote's done and it's a straightforward issue and it's okay. But I think that's really how you leverage the committee practice. And I think there's enough of an escape valve here. So if it's not an issue for people, nothing needs to change.
Okay, let's do two more questions and then we'll wrap this up.
Well, so I agree with what you were summarizing, Alex, except with one minor exception, which is that writing it down on paper would not be enough, because then you're leaving out the YouTube and anyone viewing and anyone from the public that wants. So ideally, and I know it's not easy for everyone, and as we all said, some of these, resolutions could be very lengthy, but yes, writing it on screen so that we all see it, people that are zooming in see it, and then if they want to look on YouTube, it'll be, and they can read it, and we always can go back on our minutes and say, oh, I don't agree with those minutes because actually there was a mistake, so I just think, and to Beverly's point, I think it would be okay if it was a relatively short resolution, absent typing on the screen, to read it aloud for the recording, for the members at home and everybody in the room. To me, that would be okay. It would be an exception to the writing, but the ideal is on the screen. But on paper, handing it around the table, not good enough. Nobody at home can see it.
But you would say it out loud. No, it's not gonna be a secret. You're
Well,
not gonna
no,
pass it
no.
around and say that.
Well, if it was read
everyone-
aloud,
Yeah,
I would be okay with that, but I'm just saying that takes an exception to the writing.
Practical.
Yeah,
Reading
yeah.
aloud.
Yeah.
No.
Let's go with Louisa. And then I have one question and then we can.
Okay, what bothers me is how would you deal with a lot of the issues that come before housing and land use? Are issues where you can say, oh, well, this is the public good on this side, and yet on the other side, I mean, there's affordable housing, but it's 850 units, that's a problem. And on this side, yes, look, you're gonna get affordable housing, and, you could argue on both sides. How do you walk in for us having an idea that we're going to project, especially when you're going to have a lot of the public and you're going to have a lot of information that turns up that perhaps we didn't even know. And I don't know how it would apply to a lot of the issues that we have to deal with that are really multifaceted. So how
There's-
would you do that?
I think there are several answers. The first is, if everybody agrees that it doesn't have to be done at that point, it doesn't have to be in writing.
We
So-
have a lot of time constraints.
Right, so if everybody agrees that you don't need a writing and you can take a vote or proceed with it, then that's fine. Nothing needs to change. That's the first point. The second is, I think the fact that things are happening in the room augurs in favor of having it written down, because people are going to be hearing additional things, learning things, and you would want that encapsulated in bullets, in amendments, in something that people can look at and discuss and vote on. It's difficult in the back of my mind to get away from the other OML requirement, which I feel like is the elephant in the room here, of if there is substantive work that's being done on a resolution, it has to be at a meeting. It shouldn't be done
Right.
over email between a committee. So if that is what's happening, I think that just isn't correct from how the law works. And, that's not what I'm opining on for this resolution, but I think the best practice is there should be bullets, there should be a sketch that people should be able to see, and it's okay if it's being written in the room. If there's a lot of nuance of, but affordable housing, but this, that usually doesn't always come out in the resolving clauses, that usually comes out in the discussion justifying the ultimate decision. But I still think the idea of the decision should be written down, and it's
Yes.
better, it's better work product.
You can't
if
vote on
it's
the
done.
We
resolution
actually
without a
did that.
resolution.
We had
Yeah.
that, and the final version changed radically after discussion and after we heard from various people in the room.
Yeah.
So,
But it should,
So
like, I
where-
was at
where
that meeting, if we resolved something, and then you said it changed radically, I mean, I opposed that for the record, but so it doesn't really matter, but.
it
Like,
changed quite a bit.
but my simple point is, you shouldn't vote on a resolution without a resolution. We're not voting on feelings.
Nobody's suggesting.
But
No,
that is-
I think,
My daughter's.
Yeah. anyway, I think this has been a very interesting conversation. I like that we got into some of the nitty gritties about how each of the committees work, and I think it's very helpful. I think, Carey, would you like to vote on it now, or would you like to come back to us next month and think on some of these other items we've discussed?
I think this would be the proposal that we'd come back with. I think we've had the conversation and we may as well proceed with the vote.
Okay, great.
Second.
Can I ask, can we, before we vote, have it checked with the Manhattan Borough President's office? Because I do think unanimous consent has a different meaning than what you think it means.
I think what we could do is we could vote on this and
Or
then I
you
will,
could add the words unanimous consent of those present.
Yeah.
would you like to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Of the committee or
That's
you know,
easy.
those
Probably notice in
Present
advance of the
would
meeting.
also include someone with a waiver that is zooming in.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
And remember
Every word in the
the
dictionary.
remember that the only thing we're adding to the bylaws is the bold. So the properly noticed is currently already in our bylaws, although I also find that confusing.
It's not clear. about
It is
whether
definitely
it's full
clear.
board versus.
And
And
I
that
would-
may be a different
And I would
resolution.
love to have another resolution at some point clarifying what properly noticed means,
Yeah.
because I find that confusing, but yeah.
Just one clarification question. So we have discussed an item, we are about to vote on a resolution. If everyone around the table is clear on that resolution, then we're fine. Even if it's not in writing,
Yes.
even if it's in concept, we don't like helicopters.
Right, so,
Yes.
so we're gonna go to Beverly, but like, let me do a little role play for a
Yes.
second. So we're discussing the helicopter resolution. Everyone, you know, we have these feelings about helicopters. I would propose that we write a resolution to draft. We will vote on the, you know, the concept of it, and I will draft it afterwards, which objects to helicopters. I think it's pretty obvious what we're voting on. Does anyone object to just, you know, having me draft it afterwards? And if no one objects, then we say, okay, let's do a vote on the helicopters.
But then I'll play the
Except-
part of
But
the
then,
objector.
as we're doing this, does anyone object to me just drafting it offhand later? Michael, what is your question?
No, I would object. I want it in writing.
Oh, okay, Michael wants it writing. Okay, thank you, Michael, for bringing this up.
He's right.
Let me open up my screen, or let me get my thing out. I would like it to basically say, you know, we, the community board, call on this, you know, New York City and Co. to stop ceasing things.
I wish you would put up one of housing and land uses.
And
You know,
then,
and then we can talk about how we would workshop that in a meeting.
Okay, Beverly, and then we should get to the
One more
vote.
question.
Yeah,
Just a quick comment on your notice about properly noticed in advance. That's basically defined in the city charter. So you could repeat it here if you wanted to do an amendment to bylaws, but it's clear what it is. It's the 72-hour rule. So
okay,
it's not ambiguous. It's just not there.
yeah.
But Beverly, it's also or wherever practicable, right? Remember we had.
Well, the notice of what the topic is on the agenda has to be 72 hours. The resolution is where practicable.
Got it. And again, we're not discussing that in this current resolution, but that is an item.
Can I call the question?
Sure.
Wait, I don't understand what we're voting on. I'm just kidding.
there's a request, if
Verbatim.
It's not verbatim. That's
That's
not.
what it
it
says.
doesn't have to, if everybody is fine with taking the vote now and writing it later, that's fine.
Then you're in
But I
violation
thought
of
that's
this
what you
of
don't
this,
want to do.
addition to the bylaws.
No, because it says
In
otherwise by unanimous consent.
Consent of
Yeah.
those present.
So-
So that was the role play. Is there any objection to us writing this down later? No objection being
Yeah.
heard. We'll call the
These
question.
These
Well,
are
no,
good
technically
questions.
supposed to-
Seema?
One last question. So but it says that the proposed resolution needs to be properly noticed, not that the topic.
Yeah.
So that seems like we do need the resolution.
But
3 days
that's
in
already
advance.
in the bylaws.
That's
That's already,
That's already in the bylaws.
right, and
The
But
new
that's a
part is
problem.
just.
Like, that's not
Yeah,
how.
that is a problem.
But how do you do a resolution?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
I agree that's a problem, and
So
maybe we
there's
should
not
discuss that
another day.
at the next meeting.
Okay.
But
No, my
That came up
understanding
in our
of that was
transportation
always that
meeting.
you just have to stick.
Thank you.
certainly not what we do, but, great. Should we call the question?
Forgive me,
This-
what-
the
Yeah,
question's been called.
question's been called and
But
seconded.
those present, I did, is that clear enough?
Yeah,
Because what we're saying is anyone who's eligible to vote in a meeting, right? Any board member, a committee member, a full board member, whatever, is particularly
Yeah, those
committee.
It might be
present
if
is
members
unclear.
present.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
and
Those
it's-
presents
it's
not good.
voting,
because-
I don't know.
Okay,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
we need it to be exactly as we're voting on it, so what?
Well, and we can,
eligible.
and we can always do a friendly amendment before full board, so,
Okay.
you know, I'd go back and look at the bylaws to see how it refers, but it would be, you know, members present.
Those members
Are we
present.
voting to do it in advance of the meeting? or are
Members,
we
capital
voting
M.
to say
Prior
It
to-
has to be prior to the
Because
vote.
it's-
Prior to the vote.
So what's the part in advance of the meeting?
That's not what we're voting
Not what
on.
we're talking
Voting
about.
on the
That's
full
in our,
report.
yeah, that.
It's already in there, but
That's
it's
been
not
in
what
there
we're
for
talking
40
about.
years.
Yeah. Okay, we have a vote. It's been it's been
Question's
called
been called, it's been seconded.
Second.
and seconded. So all those in favor of the amendment to the bylaws that is currently on the screen
As
as written, raise your hand. We have
Just that there's.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus Beverly.
Plus Beverly.
11.
11.
Yeah, 11.
That's what you got? Okay, you can lower your hands. And those who vote no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abst-
Your reading still going?
Yes.
Because I don't hear any.
The sound has been in and out. Let's see.
Okay, so that carries 11-7. Correct.
So,
Okay.
11
so
seconds.
this is a bylaws change, so
Yep.
it gets presented to the board and then we vote on it the following month, right?
Yes.
And that'll take 2 hours or.
We've only just begun.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
would emphasize it for the board, that what that one sentence is that you're voting on.
Yep.
That is it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was confused the whole time.
Yeah. Okay.
And the way you explained it was twice as confusing. You said before the meeting.
Quick updates, and then Beverly, we'd love to hear from you also, but Max will be returning to work on Monday. So you know, the email will remain the same, so you don't have to have a new email for him. And yeah, expect him on Monday. And we're still working on the full board venue, actually, but it'll probably be B'nai Jeshurun, but we are working on it.
Alex, check the hostel also.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's
I have
right.
who's the person who's now handling that?
Email it to me and we'll.
Okay, because I'd like to help. I mean.
Okay, yes.
I have
The
a
more
list.
help, the better. I think it's,
Yes.
we reach out to people and then last minute they say they don't want to host us anymore. And it's
Okay, well, we have some
frustrating.
new.
Okay, new places, great.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Beverly, would you like to say anything?
Yeah.
As outgoing.
Only that I have 10 more days in this role. Happy to be shoving as much as I possibly can Alex's way. And you know, it's been fun. And I will continue to be a board member in good standing and look forward to working with all of you. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, should we quickly do the chair reports? Anything you wanna share agenda for full board? So agenda items, any
I
specific?
just want to say, BCI did not have a quorum at our committee meeting,
Mhm,
but we heard the 8 applications.
mhm,
And then I wrote to, we wrote to, Natasha's the new co-chair.
mhm,
We wrote to all the committee members, told them to please review the recording.
mhm,
And we're gonna have a quick meeting before full board,
mhm.
at which time we'll have a resolution.
Great. All right, that's BCI.
Yeah, Rich.
Sort of along, could we huddle with you about open streets? The open streets program?
Sure,
We've had some incoming come in.
Yeah, that's
I think
the
That would
other
be new
thing.
business in
Yeah,
transportation.
we're open to.
Or BCI,
business
I mean,
ideas.
Yeah, I mean in BCI, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're open to new ideas to talk about.
Since we're all here, I think
Right,
there have been a
information
number of
sharing.
community inquiries about the program and
Sure.
about how we.
Sure, we're gonna
Great.
have, maybe information sessions
Great.
and,
It's a good idea.
we're open to ideas like that.
What's the issue you're going?
Well, let's talk about it later.
I don't know.
Preservation, any items on the agenda?
Thank
to
you.
discuss?
Not the full board, but we're having a second meeting this month because we had so many people at the
Yep.
meeting, we had to leave the school.
Yep.
We still don't have a place for the second meeting.
Wow.
The good news is I think we have Brandeis,
Oh.
that Gail has
That would be good.
pushed forward. And you're definitely not doing a resolution at that,
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say yes, I wouldn't say no.
well,
We have
okay,
to
interesting.
decide.
But let's make sure that
It's drafted.
we have a notice.
Notice.
It doesn't have to be.
If there is a resolution that that it's
Well, it's
noticed.
hard because there are different opinions on the committee.
Yeah, but we should at least say in the agenda, if we think that there's a resolution that will be coming from that meeting.
Well, the last meeting we had, at Joan of Arc, Gail said on the street right there, Joan of Arc is available that night.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not
it
available.
changed?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
And the other issue was the staff
You know, it's coming on.
overnight,
Yeah.
you know, that was something that Adam mentioned, because again, we're talking about the overtime. so-
We've solved that one.
Okay, good.
All right, transportation, anything on the,
I would just mention that, and I think for the coming,
okay,
Well, we
great.
had the, yeah, that's the place. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean, I don't think it was super
So-
consequential.
We had a loading zone in front of Treasure Joe's, that was it.
Right, so that will be on the full board.
Mhm.
Okay, YEL,
And the holdover.
Yeah, we have the
Correct.
resolution that's coming out of the joint committee meeting
Mhm.
with land use, so that was our example.
right,
It has the letter now,
yeah,
and from the letter, we will turn that into a resolution supporting the letter.
right. Excellent. And then housing besides that, that's the only item for this full board, right?
No, we have the Manhattan
Manhattan.
Plan.
Oh, right, the Manhattan plan,
Manhattan
yes,
Plan Part 2.
right,
Yeah, so those are our two. And then, I just wanted to let everyone know, we're working on the first kickoff meeting for the Construction Advisory Task Force for ABC Xtel.
Oh.
Still working on the date, but hoping it will be the first week of November.
And who are you choosing?
so it will be an interesting full board. We have a lot of items, especially
Mhm.
housing ones, that I think will have a lot of communication, so.
I do think I think both actually, but especially the library one. I mean, the Manhattan Plan, hopefully, we're just asking for a study essentially, so hopefully that's not that controversial, but we'll see. The library one, I think people will have a lot of feedback, I mean, just based on
Right.
our
I
previous.
anticipate robust conversation on both,
Okay.
yeah.
Just a question. When we used to do steering committee meetings, we had a discussion amongst the committee chairs about the order of the meeting.
Stole my point.
I'm just wondering if that's something in your new, that you would consider as we
Yeah,
walk out
yeah.
of this meeting, sort of have a
Sure,
sense on
sure.
things that.
Sure, we could do that. That sounds interesting. Maybe we could finish saying what other items we have, and then maybe we could,
I don't want to speak for Jami, but I think our item could go towards the end of the meeting. It was not super controversial.
so let's keep going first. So then what about health and human services?
Yeah, well, just to add on to transportation, we had two resolutions from last month we didn't get to.
Yeah, they're
That's
holdover
true, okay.
items.
Right,
So,
that's true.
so
So
Right.
sorry, I.
So we're
cracked my
gonna have
statement.
kind of a fat
Yeah,
presentation.
okay.
But that doesn't mean we have to go first, but
Yeah.
it will be a little longer than just the one item.
Health and human services, go for it.
So HHS, we have, on the 28th, we have I guess you call it a public hearing or something, on project renewal, which is building a women's shelter on 59th Street. And it's actually gonna be opening around the first of the year. I don't believe they're looking for a resolution from us.
No resolution.
It's
okay.
just informational. They're gonna take community comments and concerns and questions. We have a forum for people to sign up to speak. We also have a forum to offer comments or questions. And so far, as of a couple hours ago, we only had
Nobody, yeah.
two people signed up, but I'm sure.
Good idea by Elizabeth. Should we discuss any ordering? Okay, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that, typically what we've been doing with meeting management that's been discussion has been happened at the executive, committees. But perhaps it is better to happen at steering or both.
Yeah.
So I know we have one more executive, meeting, I think, before the end of this month. One item that was held over was introducing the new commanding officer to the 24th precinct. We could decide if we still want to do that. We were gonna do it, but then, last month was a very packed meeting. So, we could see if we can shimmy that in. And also, I just want to say on a personal note, this is also my last 10 days on the executive, and I've been on the executive committee. I've lost count, but I
We'll do that on BCI.
Yes.
Yeah, make some good trouble.
Michael?
Look forward to it.
So I was joking about saying my point, but it was exactly something that's front of mind for me for a variety of reasons. But I think, one thing we hear very often from board members, members of the public, is the meetings, they go very long. They always take the full 3 hours, which is fine. It's the commitment we all signed up for. But I also think that the sequencing of how we do things is really critical. And I expressed my displeasure at the last full board meeting. I continue to express my displeasure with the fact that there were, I thought, incredibly important items that we were voting on. And I do not hold anyone responsible to trying to get things voted on late in the game. It's no one takes individual. I think it's just, we felt the need to try to rush something because of different types of constraints. And I thought that was a real disservice to the board, to conversation in the community. And I think to that end, I think my suggestion is, there's a couple of suggestions I have. One is we can front load the meetings with what are generally easier, happier items. In an effort to try and get through them quickly. It's not that they're not important to the community, but generally, and I'm not trying to single anyone out. Typically, people are in favor of things like libraries and parks and schools, right? So, I think if we can get through, make quick presentations and get through those, that allows us to have substantial conversation on the more controversial items later. My recommendation for that and not the other way around is because if we wait to save the controversial, if we have the controversial conversations at the start, then some of those things, and YEL sadly faces this all the time because alphabetically we are last. No, yes, because we just want a simple vote for things that most people probably support. So that's one thing. I know it's maybe things that people don't want to hear, but the presentations from members of the elected officials often go very long. I have no problem cutting people off. I know it is controversial. I know people want to, in an election, they want to make their presentation. I get all that. But if we spend 35, 40 minutes dedicated to people campaigning.
They can talk about themselves.
So if I am empowered, I have no problem shutting down.
Okay, I think it's a good item.
Can I just add to that really quickly, because I dealt with this when I was
Let's keep
chair
it.
for 3 years, and one of the things we did, and I strongly recommend we consider this, is it's the elected officials coming and not being prepared an elected will say something, it'll be repeated by another Albany legislator on the same topic,
Mhm.
things that are not germane to the neighborhood.
Mhm.
I'm all about an adoption shelter taking place in Murray Hill if it's part of an elected district, but we don't need to hear that.
Right.
In the absence of that, I also think that we need to strongly consider if there are representatives of the electeds,
Mhm.
that they not speak and that they leave their information, put it online, put it on a community board letter. If they're not gonna take the time to show up in person at a
Right.
meeting, and want the chance to speak for a couple minutes about their principle, I think that we don't need that. I
Here,
think we
here.
should-
Not for nothing, I
That's
want
a
to hear
great
about the
idea.
people that care about bylaws.
Let me work on
Again,
that.
it's-
Yeah,
Here, I
I
agree
would
with
also, I agree totally with what they're saying about the electeds. But another idea was that, instead of the electeds coming and just repeating something that we can already read in their newsletters, why don't we take questions, have them take questions from the
Mhm.
audience? I think that
Yeah.
would be a better
A
use
better use
of
of time.
everybody's
Yeah.
time.
And start off that way.
Maybe start it that
Yeah.
way.
But I often
But that
find.
could take longer.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have their own, they have budgets, they
Yeah.
get paid, they can do their own town halls.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor the point, I apologize, but as the person who was. And again, I am not holding anyone at fault, I really want to stress that, but it's unfair to everyone that we don't have the opportunity to discuss things in detail. I also think that, sorry, Jami, but we
Totally agree.
often. People will say things and then it's like everything that needs to be said has already been said, but it's not been said by me. I think that we need to, right? And I think a lot of us have that mentality, perhaps myself sometimes as well. But, I think we need to start to try to curtail some members if they are not adding anything substantive to a conversation that we have to ask to move it along for the sake of other items on an agenda, particularly kind of crowded in November.
Great point. All right, so this is my.
I just wanna, not gonna repeat what Michael just said. Nor am
Associate
I
yourself
going
with
to,
this comment.
yes, but I wanna, second what Elizabeth said, but also say that we will incentivize the
Yeah.
electeds to show up
Right.
if we don't encourage them to send their staff members to speak for
Yeah,
them.
I
So
think it's a
I
good point.
wholeheartedly
I will work on that.
support the idea of we'll take your materials.
I think-
Please, we encourage you to sit in the audience and hear
Yes.
what's happening at our
Yes.
meeting.
I think it's.
But unless the elected shows up, we're
Good
moving
point.
on.
Let's do the order, but maybe before we.
Can I just say, as somebody who has been that person,
As have I, as have I.
it's a really difficult thing that you're asking for somebody whose boss is usually in a different city. So for the people who are either in Albany or in DC, the principal cannot show up. And that's why they have staff.
Right.
Yeah.
That's that.
I think-
But they can show up on Zoom.
Yeah, let's discuss this a different time. I'll circulate some thoughts on this and we can talk about that.
I just have a separate
Yeah.
point, which is, present company excluded. I feel like there are some board members that maybe don't come fully prepared to our full board meetings. Because I don't want to have to go up there and give a 5-minute presentation on the
Yep.
Bloomingdale Library project. The
Yep.
slides are up there, the links are up there.
Mhm.
Like, come prepared, come with your questions.
Yep.
If there's some way that we could sort of reiterate that as
I think we have to do something other
Standard
than
practice.
reiterating. I'll just call out that Parks is making a change, which I think
Yeah.
will be interesting and we'll see how that goes. Well, they will not be showing any slides or going through the information. And instead say you should have looked at, if you're interested, you've seen the resolution before and you can look at the PDF that's online. We'll see how that goes.
I love that.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
As a good
I'm a big fan.
example,
Yes.
that could be controversial.
Well, and to pick
That's
up on that
interesting.
point, especially for resolutions that
Right.
to pick up on that point, especially for resolutions that pass unanimously out of
Yep.
committee, I think
Yes.
it's safe to assume that people are prepared, or at least it is non-controversial, and instead of starting with the presentation, or even
Yeah.
even if it's just verbal, it might be useful if
Well,
we,
right.
ask, are there any questions about this, or does anybody want to have discussion, or can we call
Love
the
that.
question and
Yes.
just try to
Good
go
point.
straight
Yeah.
to it?
It's a good point. We'll work on that.
Here,
Let's
here.
look at this list here as our last item for tonight. Here's my thinking. Am I missing anything? But BCI group resolution, this is carrying over Michael's idea of going to the easier ones first. BCI group resolutions,
Well, we have to go to the.
it's usually non-controversial.
Correct.
So I assume that will go first in our resolutions.
But, well, I think we should go to the folks that were left off the last.
Yeah.
It's contentious.
Well,
There were
Okay.
two committees left
It
off,
was, it
right?
was Health and Human Services.
Yes, HHS.
Oh, that we didn't
No,
get
we
to in
did-
the
we
full
did-
board.
Yeah.
Did you go at
No,
the very
I
end?
think it might have just
Everything
been
went through?
transportation.
I think it was just transportation. So if you like, we can start with transportation carryover. And then we're
And
gonna,
one resolution.
okay, one resolution.
I just only think that's fair
Manager,
based on.
Howard.
This is related to full board.
This is the full board list of the resolutions
Got it.
we'll be
There was
discussing.
that got carried over from
So the
last month.
Two
transportation,
carryovers and one
Yeah,
Right,
new
and
resolution.
Yep.
yeah.
then we're gonna be doing the BCI group
You mean
resolutions.
bundle?
Bundle, sorry,
Well,
bundle.
It's, yeah, I guess they're bundled
I'm
because they
sorry,
were,
Alex,
yeah.
it's two carryovers
unless
and
there's
one
an issue
resolution.
and then we'll
Right.
separate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
Okay,
be accurate.
okay. This is just my notes for myself, but yes.
Yeah.
Then the housing Manhattan plan,
Oh,
then the housing YEL library. And if you end up doing a resolution. That will be the most controversial
Yeah.
one, and will have the most participation and speakers.
can I add, we just need to have the resolution that was carried tonight presented, I believe, first. Or at least presented,
The steering resolution.
the steering resolution, which would then be voted on in December.
Okay, we can, okay,
And I think it's
Yeah.
just a presentation.
That actually could be presented during the chair's report.
Okay.
Just briefly read it, so it's on the record.
we can do that quickly. Thank you,
Thank you,
Beverly.
Beverly.
Okay, does anyone have any issues with this order?
Sounds good.
Go for
I
it.
have an issue with the, sort of more of the concept,
I have a question.
okay, if we go to not everybody, part of the reason that we wanna have, fulsome discussions is so the community can be involved. And if the community has to wait till the end of the meeting, I don't think it really matters where we're gonna put the ones that don't take very long, because they're still gonna take the same amount of time,
Mm,
whether they're at the start or at the end. So it might make better sense to front load with the stuff that is gonna take a lot of time.
Interesting.
And then save the stuff that we think we can really get through very quickly, in case we have a time crunch at the end.
Interesting, it's an interesting point. I mean, to
I
your
think there are a
point,
lot of, oh, sorry.
to your point, if we do end up voting on West Park, there will be a huge number of people in there who will be very unhappy and making noise about waiting through all of them. Right? So it's a valid point to consider.
Adam
raises
has a
his hand.
hand up.
Adam Brodheim is here, okay.
He's
right.
in here.
But we will have held two lengthy public forums on the same question to hear from the public.
Yeah, but that won't matter.
Or-
That won't matter in terms of the robustness of the
Not on this
discussion
topic.
from
Preservation.
I know.
the
But Adam,
upcoming
feel free
ones that
to
are taking
speak.
place.
It's only been one.
Yeah, but and upcoming.
Oh,
Yeah.
look, see, there's a little note here and it says Adam is holding his hand. All right, let's get
Just,
some.
I mean, a lot of this, I think we can debate and discuss
Yeah.
the order, but you as chair, Alex, I think like you should be
Yeah, I'll
making-
make this.
And I think when it comes to things like YL, like we oftentimes, like, when there are kids that come, when there's a presentation on
Yeah.
a playground or something, and kids are in the audience, you wanna read the room and make sure that they're not there at 10 o'clock at night when the meeting is at the end. I mean, things like that are judgment calls on
Right.
the chair that I
Yeah.
think you just have to make.
Okay.
Sometimes it's game day decision.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think this is valid input to consider. Adam, you raised your hand. I don't know if you want to say anything,
Yeah.
but I think in general, I would take all this stuff back.
I think he said something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sorry, I don't have a waiver or anything, couldn't join until now. I think putting preservation last is probably the best solution, because then it's very easy to know how much time we have and to be able to say, we have to be out here at 9:15. We want to have 15 minutes of discussion of board members before we vote. That gives us 10 minutes to take 10 people from the public who will each speak for 1 minute. If we put it earlier, it's going to be much harder to explain to people why we're limiting the amount of public testimony we're taking.
It's a good point.
Agreed.
Okay. Any other items we want to discuss tonight? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Great. Go ahead.
All in favor?
Okay.
Leave that in writing.
And